Okay, and here we go again. It's Thursday, almost to the end of another week, and we're glad to say hello to Gerald Celente this first hour. Gerald joins us each month, the second Thursday of the month. It is the month of September, and it is crazier than ever out there. Hello, Gerald. Welcome back. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start. I mean, really, it's like spinning a dial at one of those little board games. Wherever it goes, it points to something nuts. This whole Southern California, first it's an Israeli-American Jew who got donations from 100 other Jews to make this horribly amateurish film about Muhammad, and then it's a Coptic Christian who did it now, and they're trying to shift it from somebody of the Jewish faith to somebody of the Christian faith. I mean, who knows? Who cares? It's nuts. And by the way, the film was released, as most of you folks know, I think it was 2 months ago, but until somebody actually dubbed it in an Arabic version, the Islamic world didn't know what it was saying. So they use that as an excuse. Now, that brings us to the issue of the consulate in Benghazi and the alleged mob that attacked it and ended up killing 4 Americans because of this film. A lot of people say, nope, there was a mob there, yes, but about 200 armed men showed up, kind of coincidentally, with RPGs and everything else, and unloaded on the consulate and set it on fire and so forth. We don't know what happened. This could have been a pre-planned operation for another. There was an assassination recently. Could have been a revenge for that. Something in the Arab world. All the press has to do is say the film is an outrage, and guess what? People go in the streets. That's what people do. So do we know what really happened? Nope. So brave Obama sends the Marines there to hunt down the killers, like they're going to actually go into Libya and find the people who are responsible. Anyway, like I say, it's just cuckoo and getting worse.
Well, the excuse of the film is like another Archduke Ferdinand moment.
Thank you.
You know, that's the fairy tale they say when you're a little kid. Now, World War I began when they assassinated Archduke Ferdinand at Sarajevo.
Remember his hat?
Yeah, I mean, it's not how World War I began, and this had nothing to do with the film. It had to do with, let's go over and play back the videotape, as they used to say.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't have anything to do with the United States invading Afghanistan and Iraq and occupying them. No, it had nothing to do with that. It couldn't have anything to do with all of those drone strikes. You know, those wonderful Terror Tuesdays that Obama has, where he selects suspected militants and they send in predator drones to kill them and anybody around them of drone killing age is also meat to get slaughtered. Couldn't be anything about that. That are going into Pakistan, into Yemen, into Somalia. No. People love getting blown to pieces with drones and wiping out families. It couldn't have a thing to do with the United States propping up the Emir of Bahrain that is slaughtering the Shia population over it. No, he's an Emir. Emirs are good guys.
Good guy.
Couldn't have anything to do with what's going on in Yemen and the slaughter of all those people as the United States has supported the dictatorship of Saleh for over 40 years. No. And nothing at all to do with that. It has nothing to do with the United States and those other little chicken hawks out there besides Obama, Cameron and Hollande, that little boy over there in France, starting war against Syria and destabilizing. No. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do in Libya with the United States, with NATO, with that little chicken hawk weenie Cameron and Obama. and Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice, our UN ambassador, and Samantha Power of the National Security Agency in the United States, who pushed for the war in Libya and destabilized the entire country. It couldn't have anything to do with hating Americans for that, could it? And turning a country that was the richest country on the African continent into a disaster. No, it had nothing. You know why they did it? I'll tell you why. On the same anniversary as 9/11, for the same exact reason. Little boys and girls, they hate our freedom and liberty.
They hate our guts. How many martyrs? How many martyrs have we created over there who are willing to die to get even with the
only
great
1 million
Satan?
in Iraq. That's how
right.
many people they killed over there.
And 2 million
$1 trillion
in Afghanistan.
Spent.
Yeah, we've killed 1 to 2 million in Iraq minimum. Probably 2, maybe 3 million in Afghanistan. How many other countries have we slaughtered innocents, as Gerald has been pointing out? Obama sits there with his little yellow legal notepad or whatever form they give him, and he's got his 5 criteria to decide who lives or dies. And then he gives it to the Joint Chiefs or whomever, and they disseminate it to the little boys and girls sitting in these air-conditioned rooms with their little joysticks and their little video games, life and death video games. That's the name of the game.
I'm going to read you a quote. This is from Hillary Clinton. Quote, "Today many Americans are asking, indeed I ask myself, how could this happen?" Referring to the killing of the Libyan ambassador. How could this happen in a country, check it out, man, we helped liberate,
oh, God.
in a city we helped save from destruction?
Yeah.
This question reflects just how complicated and at times how confounding the world can be. This is yesterday. So here's Hillary Clinton, the loudest war hawk in the White House, screeching for the invasion of Libya, a sovereign nation at peace with the United States, with a mission statement to overthrow its leader, asking herself, how could this happen? You know, Jeff, more appropriately, why wasn't asking if this woman who giggled when we came, we saw he died, and bounced with glee at Gaddafi's death, why wasn't anyone asking, was this woman actually deranged to be asking such a stupid question with such an obvious answer? This is deranged behavior. Oh, the question reflects how complicated and how confounding the world could be. Complicated? This isn't complicated. Maybe it's complicating to a psychopath.
It might be. It might be. She is a real piece of work, that creature.
But all of them.
All of them.
I mean, Obama.
All of them.
We're going to have swift justice. Oh, you know what the word justice means? That means killing anybody that they think did anything. That's
right.
Justice.
It's bringing them democracy. It's liberating them from their earthly bonds of angst and living under the oppressive thumb or jackboot of a dictator. Bring them democracy, kill them, free them, make them happy for eternity. It's true. By the way, this story got to be interesting early on. Obviously, all of the people over there who work in the consulates are CIA.
Oh, yeah.
It's a given. We know this.
Absolutely.
Sure. Now, Chris Stevens was CIA. We know that. By the way, in the beginning, he was not the ambassador. He was identified as a consul or a senior consul official at the Benghazi consulate, the U.S. consulate there. He was very quickly martyred and upgraded to be the ambassador. We didn't have a formal ambassador. Oh, well, why not? Exactly. Makes for better press, doesn't it? Not consular member killed, but ambassador killed. So that was changed very early on. There were a number of things changed, and Gerald's points are all eminently well taken. We have created over there literally millions of people who have lost loved ones, who each and every one of them would do anything at any time to get even with the great Satan, most especially to kill off a few members of the CIA, which is exactly what those people were. Back in a minute with Gerald Celente. back. Well, we have to look at this this outrageously despicable political choice that Americans are faced with, if they're going to vote at all, which I suggest they don't. It's not good to vote for evil, not the lesser evil ever. Romney says today, in criticism and an effort to turn back the Obama, he's got a pretty comfortable pad in the polls right now, says he cannot imagine saying no to a meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney focused campaign efforts Wednesday on putting a dent in President Obama's foreign policy. And he said he can't imagine ever saying no to a meeting with the Israeli leader. Well, he didn't mention that they were pals back in the 70s. They've known each other for nearly 40 years. And of course he's not going to say no to his buddy. Now, remember also that Israel formally became the first nation-state political power base outside this country to endorse Mitt Romney. And when they get the endorsement of the Israeli government, the candidates in question, and there are others, have an awful lot of power. So watch this poll game, this fake polling, begin to turn and change direction. There's plenty of time for that. Romney may be 8 or 9 points behind, but because he's got AIPAC money, he's got the Zionist state of Israel 100% behind him, at least in terms of their leadership. Watch what happens. This is not going to be a cakewalk for Barkey. Just isn't. Now, I mean, who cares if anybody meets with Netanyahu or not? The guy is clearly a nutcase. He constantly talks about bombing Iran. Americans say, American military, even the French government, the German government says, nope, not a good idea. Even some of the top people in the Israeli regime, which is what it really is, say, nope, not a good idea. But Netanyahu, he wants war. So we'll have to watch that and see where it goes. But just keep in mind, whoever backs the presidential candidate in this country by way of Iran and Israel and their conflict, in this case it's Israel, backing George, well, not George, that was his dad, but Mitt Romney, you have to think about the money and the power and the corruption. Also, just as a given, we know, and Gerald knows, it's been talking about this for a long time, all the election processes, when there is software and computers involved, is fixed. All of it. Go ahead.
Well, on the Israeli issue, I mean, you go back to the end of the campaign, the conventions on the presidential reality show, and Mittens closed it with an attack at Obama, asserting that he threw, quote, Israel under the bus, and, quote, every American is less secure today because he has failed to slow Iran's nuclear threat, meaning Obama failed it. You know, there's people down there in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You know, you're under Iranian nuclear threat. They got you right in their sights. You folks out there in Toledo, Ohio, watch out. Nobody's safe. I mean, who could believe this crap?
Yeah.
And the other point of this is really more important, is that Israel has inserted itself into the heart of the United States presidential election.
Right, they're running the show.
This is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And that there is not outrage about the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu inserting himself into the American presidential campaign. It should be all over the news. How dare they? How dare they? And here's the deal. Right now, the race is, when you listen to the campaigns, the conventions, you pick up the little innuendos. Both sides have to get their people out to vote, because we're forecasting this is going to be a very low turnout at this point, unless, of course, there's a wild card and we're at war by then. Absent of a wild card, this is a lesser of two evils, I don't care election. So both sides know they have to get their core constituencies out. It all depends on a few swing states. Romney and Obama have to win Florida. And as we know, there's a sizable Jewish vote in Florida. And Netanyahu is holding both American candidates hostage over this issue of whether or not America is going to stand by Israel should they decide to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. The nuclear facilities of which Iran says are for peaceful purposes, nuclear facilities of which all data coming out of the CIA and other agencies shows that are not for making bombs. Whether or not they give the green light to do this is going to depend on the American election.
Absolutely agree with you. Turnout is going to be very important. If you've got a swing state, one or two states that could allegedly turn the election one way or the other, fix. I remember the guy Clint, what was his name in Florida? He testified that he was hired. He's a federal employee, I think, to change the software and some kind of a vote profile. And he testified before a committee down there. We know it's all a rig. So, okay, that's a given. But the idea of who gets the money here is crucial. And you got Obama, who was a Marxist, born in Kenya in all likelihood. And you've got Romney, who is has a stench about him, which I can't even still comprehend how anybody could vote for the guy. But this is a choice? No, it's not a choice. Back in just a minute with Gerald Celente. Hang on. Okay, and back. Mittens had the quote of the week recently. He said, "I like to be able to fire people who provide services to me." Like a really great guy, huh? That's part of that stench factor. The Electoral Board at this moment projects you need 270 to win. Barkey has 243, Mittens 191. But watch, that is going to change dramatically. They're going to play games to keep the soap opera, quote, interesting, so the media can have something to talk about up until the, quote, election. It's the most despicable thing I can remember in my lifetime, Gerald. I don't know about you, but it's about as ugly as it gets.
Yeah, it really is. And as I was mentioning about the conventions, and if you listen carefully, both sides talked about the importance of getting out the vote. And as you mentioned how despicable it is, we believe this is going to be one of the lowest voter turnouts in modern history. This election has generated very little, if any, excitement. It's a race between the lesser of two evils. And what they're doing is they're working on getting out their core constituencies. And that's what's going to swing this election.
By the way, that program about that rather creepy little girl called Honey Boo Boo actually pulled more viewers than the Republican National Convention did. I don't know if you saw that little tidbit.
No, I didn't.
Just unbelievable. Just trash. Trash.
Oh, yeah, well, everything's trash.
Well, this is mega trash.
And the other point that you made about Netanyahu's relationship with Mittens going back to the days in the Boston Consulting Group, some 40 years ago.
Yeah.
In Israel, there is much more critical analyses of how Netanyahu has inserted himself into the center of this election than there is in the United States, where the prostitutes just bow and scrape. And you can't say anything bad about Israel, because if you do, then they label you, of course, as we all know, an anti-Semite.
You can lose your job real fast.
Right. So here's a quote I'd like to read to you. And this is coming from the TrendsJournal, we're working on the autumn edition, and we're writing a lot about the election.
Uh-huh.
And we write, instead the debate, such as it was, focused on whether or not to support an Israeli attack rather than the condemnation of, quote, who the hell are they to tell the United States of America what to do and when to do it, end quote. What the American media and its politicians were too timid to openly criticize, were too timid to openly criticize Netanyahu, his inappropriate intrusion into the U.S. elections was condemned in the plainest language by Shaul Mofaz, head of Israel's Kadima party. Quote,
right.
Mr. Prime Minister, you want a crude, rude, unprecedented, reckless, and risky intervention in the U.S. elections. Tell us who you serve and for what. Why are you putting your hand deep into the ballot boxes of the American electorate? Who are you trying to replace? The administration in Washington or that in Tehran?
Perfect, yeah. Mofaz has said some really good things, by the way, over there. He also said about Netanyahu, he seems to have lost his wits, and rather than making thought-out, responsible decisions, he is creating the sense of an impending war, said Shaul Mofaz. This is a good.
So, I mean, when
quote.
You hear those words,
yeah.
I mean, it could not be clearer. And here, all the politicians in this country are bowing and scraping. So, I don't think, by the way, the bad rap on Israel is really a bad rap, because when you look at Obama's track record, and we have it outlined, he's given more of our money to Israel than any other administration.
Correct.
And when you look at Obama's track record, you don't even hear the word peace process anymore coming about when you talk about the Palestinians.
Never.
And when you look at Obama's track record, I love the term that they use. The Israelis keep building more settlements. Settlements, It's
settlers.
Like happy trails
to
you.
They use the word
going
settlers.
across the wagon trains, going across the empty desert.
Yeah.
They're stealing people's land. And
they're thieves and
Obama
criminals.
administration has done nothing to stop it.
Nor will it.
Not even
you're
a
right.
pretense.
The semantic game of using the word settlement and calling them settlers is one of the most disgusting tricks. No, it is. It's reminiscent of the American covered wagon settlers. That's exactly what it is. It's designed to do that. They're not they're criminals. They're thieves. They're killers.
And Netanyahu, I'm wondering, as you pointed out, the relationship between vulture capitalist Romney and Netanyahu.
Oh, they're in it thick.
What deals are they cooking up? What schemes? I love Mittens getting out there and talking about all the jobs he's created with wonderful companies like Staples. Isn't it wonderful? Don't you want to go to college and get a job at Staples? You're making $62.50 a week after
cranking
taxes.
out those minimum wage jobs. He's amazing.
Yeah, and they brag about it, and no one is calling him out.
No. By the way, two things. One, in Romney's speech, I don't believe the word war or the subject came up once. They carefully kept him away from all that. He has pronounced that he will bomb Iran within 6 months of assuming office. That's one of the ties, geopolitical ties, that the Israelis have with Romney. He's already said, I'll do whatever you want. I'll bomb him. We'll support it. So we've got that to look forward to. That's crucial. That's really a big issue, and it's not something that we should take lightly. He has already said that. No one's talking about it. So we had no talk of war in his speech at all. No talk at war other than blaming Obama for throwing Israel under the bus. And what's the first thing, Gerald, if you were an honest candidate running against Obama, that you would bring up? The very first thing. Mr. Obama, show us proof of your legitimacy to hold the office of president. You'll not hear it. You won't hear a word about it. It's not on the table, folks. The game is afoot. and that subject is off limits. Remember that. All right.
Well, I don't think he's from Kenya. I think he's from Galaxy 9.
Well, wherever he's from.
This cat's of this earth. These are anti-humans, all of them, as I see it.
They
Romney, Obama, frickin' frack, fraud and fake.
No, they're about as inhuman as it gets. And wherever the guy's from, I'd be first to help him back on an airliner for a trip back there. Or a rocket
ship.
Whatever. Yeah, either. All right, hold on. Back in just a sec. We could talk about the economy here. I don't know how much longer it can stagger along before they allow it to fall into the gutter and then resurrect it in a new configuration so they can start fleecing the sheep all over again. But this Dow Jones thing, Gerald, is nuts, crazy. It's insane. It's up another 200 points today, 13,539. I mean, there's no justification for any of it. Anybody in the stock market really deserves to lose their butt. Sorry, that's the truth. Gold is up. Get serious. Gold and silver. 88 million Americans, give or take, are out of work, and the number is growing all the time. 20% of American children go to sleep every night in poverty. A lot of them hungry. We've got problems here that are really insoluble, given the evil controllers that have taken charge of this country. They're not going to recreate what we had in the 50s and 60s. Those days are over. There's a two-tiered lower class that's in the making right now, the bottom of the barrel, and then one rung up from that, a skeleton crew of a middle class, and then you got the upper class and the elite. But the middle class is being bled to death. We know that. Gerald's covered that for years. That's the tactic here. Homogenize most of the people into lower class, dependent, lazy, brain-dead idiots who are really incapable of outrage. There's nobody out in the streets. You seen anybody out in the streets lately? Maybe one or two on the street.
I would have thought the Occupy movements would have caught. I call that one wrong.
I think that was a bleed-off, Gerald. I think they actually, a lot of that was run and manipulated to pull what energy is out there for public protest in quasi-controlled fashion and run and bleed it out. I really believe that.
You're right. Because it didn't go. I thought it would. I thought it was the beginning of something. I really did.
I remember we talked about it.
Yeah,
yep.
And it didn't happen.
I think the Tea Party was excuse me. Let me say one other thing. I think the Tea Party, Gerald, was a similar thing. It started out as a real spontaneous movement, a grassroots movement. It was so quickly penetrated and taken over and subverted, and I think then it was used also to bleed out patriotism and run it. There's not much left. They know the game. They've got the people where they want them.
I totally agree. We just talking about the economy, and gold is what now as we're speaking 1773.
Right.
And by the way, I announced last week on our Trends in the News features that I was getting it back into gold, and my breakout point was if gold had settled over 1675 and stayed over that level for a while, the next breakout would be 1770. And I believe, and again, I'm not giving financial advice, it's only a forecast, that once it goes over 1770, the next stop is 2000. And
Makes sense.
The beginning of a gold bull run. And then, of course, I've been also saying, I must have mentioned it on your show, because I've been saying it for months, that there was going to be another quantitative easing movement prior to the election.
Oh, I think it already started.
It did today.
It started. I think it started a couple of weeks ago, but
it did. It started over in Europe when the European Central Bank said that they were going to buy those worthless sovereign debt
total
bonds.
junk. Yep.
Yeah, that no and unlimited. They said so that was a gift to Obama, and that's when things. Then you mentioned the stock markets. I was in Germany recently at the DAX, and one of the top people there told me that 80% of all the. He said this is just a stage. He said 80% of all the trades made here are high frequency trades. So anybody thinks that you know what you're doing and you're playing E-Trade or any of these other things, good luck, because this game it's a totally manipulated, computer generated insider trading game.
It's a shakedown, folks. Long term, short term, doesn't matter. It's a shakedown. So
as we're looking at the economy and going back to the power, and that's what I want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, that both the Tea Party and the Occupies, the power groups take them over. Well, you look what happened over in Germany on Wednesday. The Supreme Court was meeting and ruling, actually, on whether or not it was constitutional within the German Constitution to take the people's money and put it into the European Stability Mechanism, the ESM.
Mm-hmm.
And I had said, when this happened, 38,000 signatories, by the way, of the German people signed on this. I said that they're going to bend like every other court. It's not a court. It's just another division of the political mafia.
Sure.
And sure enough, that's exactly how they voted. They did not vote on the constitutionality of it. They voted on how dangerous it would be if they didn't steal the people's money. And by the way, these European stability mechanisms, they give them these names. All they are is taking your money and depositing it directly in the banks to pay off the investors all their losses plus interest. That's a fact, Jack. Not making that up. So they voted that that's okay. They also voted to take away power from the Bundestag and bring it into Brussels. So there's going to be now an entire central bank that's a mirror image of the United States Central Bank. And just in the United States, how none of our states have any rights anymore, and we follow the Washington dictate, that's what they're setting up the rest of Europe to do as well. Now, I'm mentioning this because, again, we're talking about power, and the power is being concentrated into the hands of a few. Now, where was the other big issue yesterday, September 12th? It was in Holland with the Dutch people. They had a big election, and who did they vote for? They voted for the same crook that put them into the problems. The people in Spain, when they had an election, they voted for the person that promised to exert the most amount of pain and pressure. They had an election in Greece. Who did they vote for? They voted for the person, Samaras, who was going to and promised that he would make them suffer. So I don't know what's going on, but the people in power are grabbing more power, and the people that could stop it, are voting to be raped again more and harder by the banking class. I know. It's weird. And you have to suggest, at least in theory, that these elections are being controlled. You got to. These people can't be all that stupid. They are. Well, they are. The guy who was running in the Dutch elections went on a debate, debates and made a total fool of himself. It's like in the United States. Eisenhower said it best. Now remember, Mittens Romney, for example, has been running since 2006, and Obama never stopped running. No. Eisenhower said any man that wants the office and seeks the office has to either be an egomaniac or insane. Now, I told you what my dad said. Anybody seeking that office should be barred from it. Same thing. Yeah. No, you're right. I knew. So when you're looking at the political class, let's call the political... Why do people so easily call murderers, murderers, thieves, thieves, and whores, whores, and are unable to call the political class thieves, murderers, and whores? And what's happened in America, the religion in this country has now become politics. If you don't support my freak, boy, how could my freak is better than your freak? That's the political game. And when you tell people, hey, listen, man, your guy's full of baloney, boy, do they get tight.
Yeah.
Not only will they fight, and they'll also fight and die over the belief in their freak cares for them more than your freak cares for you.
Well, that's the divide and conquer technique. It doesn't matter if you're talking politics, religion, a private club. As soon as you adopt a label and make it your own, a sports team, it doesn't matter. If your ego becomes invested in an outside interest, a conceptual interest of power, of money, of wealth, of whatever, of stature, of spirituality, it doesn't matter. As soon as you bond with one of those things, you're out. You're done. You've been marginalized. You've been separated. You've been compartmentalized. You've been set against your fellow man. That's the game.
Yep. And that's what it is. And so I'm not voting in this election. I refuse. I'll vote locally here for some things, but I will not vote for a lesser of two evils. I don't have relationships with lesser of two evils that I know about.
Well, this creep Ryan is another case, and that guy.
Yeah, and I won't. And I won't do business with lesser of two evils. I'm certainly not going to vote for a lesser of two evils that's going to run my life and run my country.
No, thank you. Agreed. And I think a lot of our listeners, we have the wisest audience in talk radio. I really believe that. 19 years we've been here, and a lot of folks have been with us since the beginning. These people understand what's going on. They hear you loud and clear. Did you, by the way, Gerald, you mentioned gold. Were you able to recover any of what was stolen from you?
I got 80% back. Still have a very big loss. And John the Slime Corzine was never even brought up on charges.
No, of course not. Well,
and of course, the law firm, by the way, that represents MF Global, son of a gun. Same law firm that Eric Holder came from.
Oh, gee, what a coincidence.
The Attorney General.
Shocking.
Yeah, isn't that something? What a coincidence,
huh? Just this one after another.
Yep, and by the way, all of you liberals out there, probably none out there listening to your show, but if you know any, and you want to give your Obama apologist a little tweak, not one head on Wall Street rolled under the Obama Holder regime. Not one.
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. Wow. Well, you've summed it up as always. TrendsResearch.com is the location. Please sign up, become a subscriber. The autumn edition will be out. These are keepers. They're wonderful. Thank you, my friend. Always great to talk to you.
Hey, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, be well.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Gerald Celente, TrendsResearch.com. We'll be back.